Hello, this is Mrs. Handlin, and I'm going to walk you through creating a frequency polygon on your TI-83 or 84 calculator. The point I'm starting from is page 3 of your lecture notes for 2.1, where it talks about frequency polygons. That is the section right here, frequency polygons, and it has this picture, kind of looks like a crooked M. I'm using the numbers from this table, so make sure that that is where you're looking. And I'm using the beginning part of the class boundaries right here and the midpoints. Those are the two numbers. The class boundaries, the left-hand side, and the midpoints. That's what I'm using. Okay, to the calculator. First thing you want to do is enter the data into your calculator. So the way that you do that is you click on this Stat button right here. It's next to the arrows. It says Stat. While Edit is selected, you press Enter. And then L1, we're going to refer to that a lot. That means List 1. That's the first one. You just start entering your numbers. And again, that was the left-hand side of the class boundaries is what I'm entering first. Now, for those of you that already know how to do this part, you can fast forward through this, and I will get into how to add in or insert a line above these here in just a minute. So you can fast forward through this part while I do this. But those of you that don't know how to do this part, we're going to do this real quick. So you enter the number, and then you press Enter. And it goes automatically down to the next one. So you start entering the next number, 190.5, and Enter. And you keep going from there. And once you get the hang of this, it'll be very easy. And if those of you that are catching on want to skip this part too, you can. Oops. There we go. Okay, now to get to the next column over, we just arrow to the right. You use these arrows a lot on your calculator up at the top. Arrow to the right, that goes over to L2. And what we're going to enter now is the midpoints. So that was the next column over. If we're looking at this again, that is the midpoints, these numbers. So I'm going to enter 172.5, Enter, and 208.5, Enter, and so on. So go ahead and enter those into your calculator. And you can fast forward this if you don't need it. All right, so we have both of our numbers, our sets of numbers entered. Now comes the tricky part. In the calculator directions, it tells you that you have to go back in and insert a line in each of these columns at the beginning and end so that the graph touches the x-axis. Well, the end is no problem. You just add a line. But how do you add one at the beginning? Well, actually, that's not too bad either. So let's do that. I want to arrow to the left in order to get back to L1, and then arrow up until I have the first line highlighted. Now, something neat that you can do with your calculator is you can insert things at different places. So if you look to the left of where your arrows are, you have this button that says DEL or delete, but just above it, it says INS or insert, and it's in blue, which means it goes with our second button. So if you press second and this button, it will actually insert. And you see what it did there? It put a blank right here above my first entry on L1. So now I can put something into this entry. Okay, so what do I want to put in this entry? Well, it says that I need to put one class width less than the lowest one. Well, I can't figure that out off the top of my head. So here's a way to figure that out without messing up where we are in the entries. I want you to type this into the spot just this way. I'm going to use these two numbers to figure out my class width, and I'm going to have it figure it out for me. So type this into your calculator. 154.5 minus, and then open parentheses. These are your parentheses right here. Open parentheses. 190.5 minus 154.5, and then close parentheses. So see what I did there? I took the inside part to figure out my class width. Class width, remember, is two consecutive numbers subtracted. And then I subtracted that whole amount in parentheses from my lowest number. And then the result of that is what is the value for that entry. So then when I press enter, it puts that value in there for me. Wasn't that nice? Your calculator can do all kinds of things for you. You don't have to do all the work. That is incredibly handy. Okay, now arrow over to the right so that we can put in our new entry at the top. Then arrow up, and we're going to do the insert thing again. So I'm going to do second and insert. And this one we want to be 0, because remember we want it to be on the x-axis. So we want our frequency to be 0. And it's already 0, but I'm going to do that anyway. And then we need to have our entries at the bottom. So I'm going to arrow down until we get to the bottom here. I'm going to arrow to the left, and I'm going to do something very similar at the bottom, but this time we're adding 2. So here's what I want you to type for the bottom. So I'm going to say 370.5 plus, open parentheses, and I'm going to just use the numbers that I did before, 190.5 minus 154.5, close parentheses. So I'm just using those numbers from the top just because they're familiar, but I'm adding it this time to the bottom one. So I have a class width that I'm adding to that one. Now I'm going to press enter. Handy, huh? Alright, now I'm going to arrow to the right, and I'm going to put a 0 here. Again, so that will show up on the x-axis. Then I'm going to enter. Okay, now we have all of our entries in the way that we want to. So now we should be ready for the graphing part. So let's press the second key and y equals up here at the top. Then we're going to select this first one by pressing enter, the first stat plot, by pressing enter. Now you see that off is selected and we want to select on, so we're going to press enter and see how that switched to on. So now on is selected. Now we need to select the right one, so we're going to arrow down And it looks like the right one is actually selected, but we're going to make sure. So we arrow over, and it's kind of that crooked M. Press enter. If that one had not been selected, you would need to make sure that it's selected by arrowing over to it and pressing enter. Then you want to arrow down, X list and Y list. This is where you want to make sure that your data is represented correctly. Now we only had, on my lists, I only had information in L1 and L2. You might have had information, you might have had this frequency information in your L2 and your midpoints in L3, and that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You just need to have L3 here in your Y list instead of L2, if that's the way that you had it whenever you were entering things. All you have to do is make sure that you list it correctly here. Okay, so the way that you would change that if you needed to is you would do your second button, and then whichever number on your keypad here goes with that list number. And in this case, it would be L1 would be 1, and you arrow down, and this one would be second 2. See how that has L1 and L2 above it in blue? That aligns with my shift or my second button. Okay. Now we're going to arrow down. We have everything selected the way we want it to. So the only thing left to do is to press zoom, that's at the very top here, and press 9. And there we go. All that work, and this is what we get. I know sometimes it doesn't seem like it, but that is our result, and that is exactly what you're supposed to get. Very good job. You did it.